For content information and the link to the written version of this entry, please check the description down below. Welcome to the second entry in my Under the Queer Umbrella spin-off blog series, where I discuss new terms I learned of this week, as well as new terms added or updated on the wiki in the past week. In this video, we shall be discussing a small variety of queer identities which I found on the LGBTA+ wiki, either through the randomizing button or through looking at the newly added section. Before we get into this video, make sure to consider looking at ways to support me, including through my Cash App, my GoFundMe to help support my transition, and also my commissions. The links will all be down below. Disclaimer. Although I've gone into this video with the best intentions to educate others and done plenty of my own research into these identities by talking to those who identify with these labels and doing online research, I do not have the majority of these identities and therefore cannot speak from personal experience. If I get any information wrong, if you're comfortable, feel free to let me know in the comments and I will amend the blog entry of this video if needed. My intention is to bring awareness to these identities and to educate on the beauty of queer identities. I encourage you to do your own research alongside this entry and video. You can find the links to all of these identities by clicking on the representative flag by clicking on the link down below. Sorry, you can click on the flag on the blog, but you can click on the link in the description for them in this video. Now back to the video. Terms I learned this week. This is a series of terms I found through randomizing the LGBTA+ wiki page each day of the past week. These terms will be placed in alphabetical order, with the possible exceptions of terms that are directly related to a term I randomized. Alterpronominal. Alterpronominal is a term used by those who have alternating sets of pronouns, want to use different pronouns for themselves at different times, have pronouns that change their gender. This is especially useful for those who experience gender fluidity. This term can also be used by those who are sometimes pronounless, but at other times have pronouns, and can also be used by those who simply swap their pronouns around rather than experience them fluidly. As I use 3 sets of pronouns, this term could come in handy for me. The pronouns that I use the most is they, them, but I also use both it, its, and that, that's. I use these because they were often weaponized against me, and using them is a way I can reclaim them and take that power away from those weaponizing them. Boyish gender. This term is for those who identify with the term boy but don't identify with any male identity at all. Those who are boyish gender can be any gender or sexuality, which is primarily for those who are not men. This term is in no way connected to being a man. Those who are boyish gender are not men or male in any way, shape or form. This term was coined by Jackal_era over on Twitter, so make sure to follow him and show your support. No Cissexual. This term is used by those who are trans and or non-binary or any other identity which isn't cisgender, to refer to their attraction to all genders as long as they're not cis. This can mean their attraction fades away as soon as the subject of attraction is known to be cisgender, they don't feel attraction to others until they know for certain that they are not cisgender, or they choose not to date another until they know the subject is not cisgender. At first glance, this may seem exclusionary, but this is not the case. This often falls to a matter of safety. Some who are trans do not feel safe around those who are cis, due to oppression they experience from them. This can be any form of transphobia, ranging from misgendering and deadnaming to physical assault. Transphobia is a huge problem within society and was created by cisgender individuals in order to spread mistruths, demonize and dehumanize the trans community. This does not mean all who are cisgender are transphobic, but since a large majority are, whether intentional or not, it's understandable why those within the trans community may use the term no cissexual for themselves. It's important to recognise that although there is nothing wrong with being cisgender, those who are cisgender have a privilege over those who are not, since it's considered a societal norm. Coy sex. Coy sex is an umbrella term for those who don't quite understand their sex or don't want to define their sex. This could be from not understanding what sex is, finding the concept of sex inaccessible, finding sex confusing, or an alternative to questioning to express exhaustion or frustration when trying to find a better term to describe their sex. It's important to note that gender identity and sex are not the same thing, but sex is just as much a part of one's identity. This term is especially useful for those who are intersex, altersex, or system members with a system-exclusive sex. I myself feel as if I can relate to this term, as I often find my sex to be confusing and somewhat uncomfortable, being a non-binary individual who needs nullification affirmation surgery. I do not relate to any of the binary sex terms, and I am not intersex. So coy sex could be a good term to use for myself, but in the meantime I prefer to use the term nullo, which of course is shorthand for nullification or nullified. Spike agenda. Spike agenda is a xenogender relating to spikes, thorns, or any other sharp object. Those with this gender may feel their gender is sharp, pointy, and or dangerous, and their gender could be connected to metal plants or animals. Fanduen. Fanduen is a Maya-spec, Mengender, and Xelaromantic in the Neurodivergent system, and is one of the four nature systems. It's related to nature and its aesthetics, and is aligned with maleness and or masculinity and xeninity. If any of those terms seemed confusing to you, don't worry, I will be discussing them individually in future entries, so please subscribe to my blog and my channel to keep updated, or in the meantime you can research into them yourself through the wiki page linked in the description below under Fanduen. Mengender. Mengender refers to a gender identity where two genders overlap and combine with each other to create a new gender. It's best described as a mathematical intersection between two genders. Those who use this term do not identify with either of the intersecting genders separately, only with the combination of those genders. If you're enjoying this video, please consider donating to my Patreon for just £1 a month, where you can get access to these videos a day early, and also access to mini episodes each day, or as many days as I can do, where I will be talking about identities that I did not include in this entry. That is again £1 a month on my Patreon, which you can find linked down below. Terms added to or updated on the wiki this week. This is a list of terms I found by going to the recently added section of the LGBTA+ wiki. The following identities were either coined in the past week or had a major update to their page, such as the addition of a flag or an updated description. They are placed in release order with the exception of the terms which are directly related to the terms I found. This is not every identity that was added this week. I focused on those which were coined in the past week and also had flags. The following is an exclusive identity. Anavague. Anavague is an aspec orientation which is influenced partially or fully by one's neurodivergence. An example of this would be those whose aesthetic attraction is influenced by their autism. As this identity relies on those who use the term to be neurodivergent, it can only be used by those who are neurodivergent, and therefore it's an exclusive identity. Arnie gender. Arnie gender is a term used by those who don't fully or partially identify with their gender assigned at birth, but refuse to call themselves transgender. This could be for many reasons, including feeling as if the term isn't meant for them. Many who are non-binary feel like they would be appropriating the term trans if they use it for themselves. Of course, this isn't the case. Trans is an inclusive umbrella term for all who are not cisgender, but it's important to remember that you cannot force others to use a term they are uncomfortable with. This is why Arnie gender can come in handy for those individuals. I'm really sorry if you can hear shouting. My family are going wild out there. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's safe to return. My family have gone. Pairasexual. This term refers to those who experience a rare gender blindness to an individual that would not otherwise be included within their primary orientation. An example of this would be for those who are usually attracted to men, finding themselves attracted to one woman. Those who use this term do not consider this attraction to the individual as a change in their orientation. This term is most often used by those within a non-binary community, but it can be used by those who are not non-binary, and is also a good alternative for those who don't feel terms such as heteroflexible. I mentioned this identity in more detail in my single attraction identities entry, so check that one out. Don't necessarily fit them. This term was coined by prnc.7th over on Instagram, so make sure to show your support to them. Xelaromantic. This is a term for those who become hyper-romantic upon initiating a romantic relationship. This is an aerospec identity. We will be exploring this spectrum more in my next main under the queer umbrella entry. And the main feature of this identity is the switch to hyper-romantic occurring at the start of the romantic relationship, regardless of the individual's initial experience of romantic attraction with their new partners. A common experience for those who experience being hyper-romantic is that they often feel their attraction is intense and as if they have been with their partners for years. Post-orientation. This term is used by those who feel their identity has been shaped by an orientation they no longer identify with. For example, those who used to identify as lesbian may use the term post-lesbian, as they still feel a connection to that label despite no longer using it. If I wanted to, I could use this term for myself, as I used to identify with the term gay and present myself as such, but no longer use it as I found terms that better suit me. Using the term gay did shape my experience with my identity, and the term post-gay could be appropriate for me. However, I personally don't feel any connection to the term at all. I'm only using my own experience to better explain the premise of post-orientation and how it may resonate with some. Multi-4. This is a term referring to those who are multigender, multisexual and or M-spec in general, multipronominal and multinomial. I will be discussing multigender in a future entry. I've already discussed the M-spec in my multisexual attraction identities entry, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. And briefly, multipronominal refers to those who use multiple sets of pronouns. This is similar to Alterpronominal, which I mentioned earlier, but not the same as it doesn't include those who are pronounless. And multinomial refers to those who use multiple names. Those who are multi-4 are a part of all these umbrella terms. Timor-gender. Lastly but not least, we have Timor-gender. This is a gender in the emotion system. I'll be looking into this system further in a future entry. That relates to those who have a strong connection to fear and or paranoia. Those who use this term might feel their gender fluctuates when experiencing these emotions. Their gender is only felt when experiencing these emotions, or they feel these emotions are an important part of their gender. So that was it for new terms I learned this week. Who knows what identities I'll discover next week. Don't forget that we'll be discussing the aromantic spectrum, better known as the aerospec, soon. I know I mentioned it would be this month, but I've had to change some things around. Please do your own research along these entries, and until next time, happy Pride Month. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to see more. Over on my Patreon, alongside this video, I've released the first entry of my day 1. That didn't make any sense. I released the first entry of my terms I learned today, where I go over 3 different identities, which I didn't include in this entry. And I will try to keep up with that every day, so make sure to subscribe to my Patreon and subscribe to my channel. Like, subscribe, comment down below, support me, share, you know the drill. On Tuesday, over on my Patreon, because the dates on the thing, on the thumbnail, you know, on the little image, represent the day that is released over on my Patreon. But on Wednesday on YouTube, you will be seeing my I don't know if it could be a chapter 10 chapter. I'm so sorry, I don't know what I'm doing right now. On Thursday on my Patreon and Friday on YouTube, you will see my hidden disabilities accompaniment to my Hunchback of Notre Dame retelling. And on Saturday over on my Patreon and Sunday over on YouTube, I will be uploading my classic retelling based on Arachne, the Spider Woman. So again, thank you so much for supporting me and my channel, and I will see you all next time. Bye!